This video brought to you by my YouTube members and patrons. Thank you guys. How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another subreddit video. Today we are going to be taking a look at r/nottheonion. This is a subreddit dedicated to posts that are so outlandish, so ridiculous, so absolutely bonkers that you would think that they were satirical, that you would think that a satirical news site like the Babylon Bee or the Onion or something like that had made them. However, these are all real. Oh dear. Very quickly before we begin, I just wanted to mention that, as always, if you want 4 extra videos every single month, 1 extra video every single week, then you can join my YouTube members or patrons for as low as £1 a month to get access to that content. It's greatly appreciated. So if you think that my videos are worth basically 25p per video, then that's how much you'll be spending per video that you'll get, and you'll get access to all of the videos that have come out in the past. Right now that's not many, but in the future it will be more. Other than that, let's get into the subreddit, shall we? RFK Jr. I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me. Skirting a question on an issue that has gained him support and stoked opponents, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. told Wisconsin Democrat Rep. Mark Pocan during a hearing before a House committee he thinks Americans should not be taking medical advice from him. The issue? Vaccines. Pocan asked Kennedy, if you had a child today, would you vaccinate that child for measles? Probably for measles, Kennedy said, before backpedaling. What I would say is my opinion about vaccines are irrelevant. I don't want to seem like I am being evasive, but I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me, he added, reiterating his stance when pressed further by Pocan. I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me, says the Health Secretary of the United States of America. Am I taking crazy pills right now? This dude's brain is so addled by the vast amounts of worms that have been eating it over the years. He can't string together a coherent sentence. He is here as the Health Secretary of the United States saying, I don't think you should be taking advice from me. So Republicans have been going after DEI recently. You know, everyone's probably heard about that. That's a thing that's going on. They're going, oh, DEI is destroying the country. We're getting unqualified people running our government or doing things and blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, you know, without DEI being involved, you know, basically just this guy's friends with Trump being the main reason they held any position of power, we have RFK Jr. as health secretary saying, don't listen to me for health advice. The dude is incoherent, had his brain eaten by worms, took his family to swim in a shit-filled river. You know, the classic. He's anti-vax, he's anti-fluoride in the water, he's anti pretty much everything that all medical science says is good for you. We've also got fucking Elon Musk, who's only in the government because he pays Trump a lot of money, who's tweaking out and just diving straight into a K-hole on live TV. We've got Donald Trump. Yeah, but DEI is the problem, right? It's not the fact that the American government is a fucking circus right now. No, it's DEI that's the problem. Author of Texas bill to ban furries in schools cannot come up with examples of it happening. Jesus Christ. What a title. Austin, Texas. The author of a bill that would ban non-human behavior in Texas public schools struggled to come up with examples of it actually happening when pressed during a committee during this week. On March 13, Rep. Stan Gertz announced he had filed the Forbidden Unlawful Representation of Role-Playing in Education Act. In a press release announcing the bill, he said he heard reports of a furry-related incident at a Smithville ISD school. During a committee meeting for the bill this week, Gertz said he called the superintendent and that the conversation was extremely concerning. What they're saying: I was informed that this is happening in districts across the state, and they do not have tools to prohibit these types of distractions, Gertz said. However, during a March 31st school board meeting, the district provided a release debunking those claims. What? You're telling me that Republicans are making laws and stances on things that aren't really happening to distract us from the greater problems at play? No way! That never happens! US Copyright Office found AI companies sometimes breach copyright. Next day, its boss was fired. The head of the US Copyright Office has reportedly been fired. The day after, agency concluded that builders of AI models' use of copyright material went beyond existing doctrines of fair use. You're telling me that AI, that thing that every artist has been saying steals their art, is stealing art? No, it can't be. That thing that everybody has been saying and that pretty much every investigation has shown is true? No. But also the fact that the head of the US Copyright Office was fired immediately after this. Like, there's definitely some money being passed around there, huh? But I have some pretty damning evidence in regards to copyrighted material being used and art being stolen by AI, because people still try and argue that this isn't the case. The only piece of evidence you need on this is look at something like glazing or nightshade or other methods of protecting your art from AI scalping, you know? So you can do these things called poisoning your art, glazing your art, whatever, where it basically puts a filter over the top of your art that makes it effectively unreadable by AI. There are both image and audio versions of this to protect your music and to protect your artworks. This in itself is a method that basically artists can use to go, my art is my own and I will not let you use it. You cannot use my art without your consent. And if art is used without your consent and you have that filter on, it actually damages the databases that those AIs use to make them worse at producing AI art. Effectively, this is a method that is used so that artists across the board can go, you have to get permission to use art, otherwise your database will be ruined, which makes so much sense because of course they should have to get permission. However, the owner of Midjourney have recently announced that this is an attack. They will not stand for this and that they are working to fight against this attack. This isn't an attack on Midjourney. If Midjourney's databases are being ruined by glazed art, it's because you're taking it without permission. And by saying that this is an attack and that it's affecting your data sets, of course you are admitting that you are taking art from artists using this filter without getting permission from said artists. That is pretty much straight up evidence of a company stealing artworks without permission. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an issue. Jail locks down after convicted killer goes missing for 12 hours. Then cops realize they forgot him at the courthouse. The Clayton County Jail in Jonesboro, Georgia, went into lockdown after officers could not find a missing inmate who was convicted of murder, only for cops to discover they had left the inmate at the courthouse holding cell overnight. For about 12 hours, Julian Brooks DeLoic was missing from the county jail, where he was on loan from the state prison due to a recent misdemeanor. DeLoic was convicted of murder in 1984, was granted parole in 2010. Clayton County Sheriff Levin Allen told WSB-TV that the jail went on lockdown as officers searched for him, but the next morning they realized he had accidentally been left in the holding cell at the courthouse. How does this happen? How do you just, oopsie, left a murderer behind? And on your records, it's just put down that he's back in the jail. Because surely it should reflect in your records where he was left. It shouldn't be like he was accidentally left there. It's you should have on paper, on record, exactly where that prisoner currently is being kept. How do you just accidentally leave a murderer behind? RFK Jr.'s FDA head wants diabetics to get cooking classes instead of insulin. The head of the Federal Drug Administration under Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has claimed that diabetics should get a recipe book instead of insulin. So basically, he wants diabetics to die. First and foremost, not every form of diabetes is weight related. Type 1 diabetes isn't related to your weight. You need insulin or you'll die. It doesn't matter how good your diet is. Also, type 2 diabetes, those people still need insulin or they'll die. You give them a recipe book instead, sure, they might be able to cook 1 or 2 of the recipes and then they'll die. I mean, that's it. Once again, this is a man that's in charge of health in the United States. Woman says security guard at Liberty Hotel in Boston confronted her in bathroom, asked her to prove gender. A couple said they were embarrassed and offended after they were ordered to leave a high-end hotel in Boston over the weekend. The woman said a security guard at the Liberty Hotel challenged their use of a bathroom. Ansley Baker and her girlfriend Liz Victor went to a Kentucky Derby party at the hotel Saturday. The couple, who are both cis women, said their afternoon ended when hotel security searched the women's restroom and allegedly asked them to show their identification to prove their sex. And here we have the problem. This hurts everybody, and it solves nothing. That's it. That's the statement. It solves nothing and it hurts everybody. The most crazy thing about this is, you know, having people searching the bathrooms. They're just out here like, oh, we got to make sure we have people regularly search the bathrooms. That's a little bit fucking weird, don't you think? But also, they regularly do this whole like, oh, we're protecting women from sex offenders. Sex offenders are committing a crime. Do you really think they are going to give a shit if there is a rule in the bathroom that says only cisgender women allowed? They're already committing a crime that would send them to jail. They don't give a fuck about your bathroom rules. It's not going to make a difference. If they're willing to commit a crime that could send them to jail if they are caught, it doesn't matter who they are. If it's a cis woman or a trans woman, a cis man or a trans man, if they're committing that crime, they're going to go to jail for said crime. So they're going to commit it anyway. All this does is hurt trans people and cis people who are not conventionally attractive, as shown here by these cis women that the security guard does not consider conventionally attractive, who decided that therefore they must be trans. This hurts everybody and it solves nothing. You know what would solve all of these issues? Straight up, every single one of these issues? Wall to ceiling cubicles. Bathrooms with lockable doors that have no way of looking in on them. That's it. That solves the issue. Instead of having cubicles that anyone can look in, that you share with other people, have rooms that are locked and that only you are in. That solves the issue. They exist loads in the UK. They're everywhere. China's unemployed Gen Z are proudly calling themselves rat people. They're spending all day in bed in a rebellion against burnout. Now the link on this one's a little bit broken, but God, is that relatable. We can still look at the article though. The millennial era of work hard, play harder, and girl bossing has given way to a new trend. In China, at least, Gen Zers are proudly calling themselves rat people. They're spending entire days procrastinating in bed, scrolling on their phones, snoozing, and ordering takeout. Across Weibo, Rednote, Douyin, you can find videos of the youngest generation of adults waking up only to go back to bed. This is so relatable. That's the most relatable thing I've ever heard. They're just like me for real. I'm Gen Z. I guess I'm a rat person. I'm gonna go bed now. Bye. Alchemist's dream realized as lead turned into gold at Large Hadron Collider. Fulfilling the dream of medical alchemists, physicists have observed the transmutation of lead into gold through nuclear physics at the Large Hadron Collider, the world's most powerful particle accelerator. For centuries, this idea of turning lead into gold, chrysopia, seemed out of reach. The two metals share a similar density, but modern science later proved they are distinct elements and chemically non-interchangeable. However, gold can be produced, albeit in microscopic amounts, at the heart of ALICE, one of the four main instruments at the LHC at CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research. This is insane, actually. I know it's only a minuscule amount that's being produced, but the fact that they are chemically distinct elements, they in themselves are elements that are not linked. They're similarly dense, that's it. They're nothing alike. And that this alchemy view was never based in actual science. And yet this is something that can be done now is actually kind of insane. I don't know, I just find that really interesting. Harvard's unofficial copy of Magna Carta is actually an original, experts say. A Magna Carta wrongly listed as unofficial copy for nearly 80 years has been confirmed as an original from 1300. The discovery means the document is just one of 7 issued in 1300 by Edward I that still survive. David Carpenter, a professor of medieval history at King's College London, stumbled on a document labelled as an unofficial copy of Magna Carta from 1327 in Harvard Law School's library online collection. He said, "I was trawling through all these online statute books, trying to find unofficial copies of the Magna Carta, and I immediately thought, my god, this looks for all the world like an original of Edward I's confirmation of Magna Carta in 1300, though of course appearances are deceptive." Carpenter and Nicholas Vincent, professor of medieval history at the University of East Anglia, used a battery of tests to establish the authenticity of the document known as HLS MS 172. How How does this happen? How does something as historically as significant as one of the original copies of the Magna Carta from 700 years ago, how does that just get labeled as an unofficial copy for 80 years? How does that happen? Surely that's a pretty big thing to go missing, to think that it's a fake, right? Right, just me? And the final post. Fox News analyst faints and falls out of chair on air, and host tries to carry on with show. A Fox News guest fainted on air Thursday night in mid-sentence of a harsh critique of the Biden administration, forcing the show's host to awkwardly try going to another guest before heading to break. Cameron Kinsey was criticizing former President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris when she started slowing down, stopped speaking altogether, and suddenly toppled over. The fact that the host didn't try and make sure she's okay, didn't, try and get her help, or do anything to help the fact that this woman has just collapsed in the middle of a sentence on their TV show, just moves on, just starts talking to someone else. We'll ignore that. That's not happening right now. How can someone be so lacking in compassion and care? However, they're a Fox News host, that's their job. So I guess it's not ultimately very surprising, This is the company that recently said, we can't be held accountable for what our viewers do because anybody that's watching Fox News should be aware of the things that we say are not necessarily fact and shouldn't be taken seriously. Basically going, don't listen to us, we lie. You shouldn't make any actions based on the things we say. We don't tell the truth. To cover their asses when people were doing outrageous shit based on things that they've said on their show. So I guess it doesn't really surprise me that someone would collapse on their show very clearly unwell and they would just ignore it on live TV and carry on as if nothing's happened. That's Fox News. And that's where I'm going to end the video, everybody. I hope you have enjoyed. Oh boy, what a wild ride this has been, huh? We've learned some interesting things today. If you would like to support me in making more content like this, then I have a Patreon in the description down below. Or equally, you can click on that join button on the channel to support me. It helps a lot more than you might realize, but by no means should you feel like you have to. I'm going to keep making content regardless. A huge, massive special thank you to all of the wonderful YouTube members and patrons that do support the channel though. All of your names are up on screen right now. It genuinely helps so much, and it genuinely means so much. So thank you. If you do support me, or if you are considering supporting me, you will get one video every single week that is not accessible by the public. That's 4 videos every month for as low as £1. So please consider that. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you have enjoyed, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Peace out.